Have you heard about the Haunted Castle restaurant in Plano, Texas? Nope. Well, neither did I until I saw a random TikTok video and it looked pretty neat, so I thought, let me go and check it out so I can come back and let my spooky crew know exactly what it's all about and if it's a deal or dud. So before I get into the good, bad, and the ugly, I do want to just say that my main goal in doing this video and this review is to express my firsthand experience with my visit and to give constructive feedback that I genuinely do think could help them improve. That said, let's get spooky. So driving up to the location, it kind of has a medieval times kind of vibe to it with a little bit of skeleton hints here or there. So we weren't sure exactly what to expect on the inside, except for the little bits that we got in the video that we initially saw. Walking in, you definitely immediately get spooky vibe. It is pretty much all dark in there. They have done a good job of trying to basically eliminate all natural light in order to create a more blacklit or dark environment. And floor to ceiling, there is definitely a lot to look at. They have murals all over the place. There are interactive pieces on the wall that have some aspect of projection going on. They have stuff hanging down from the ceilings, and even the bathrooms are fully decorated and completely blacklit, which not everyone likes that. I know I kind of go either way on it, because on one hand you can't see exactly how disgusting the bathroom is when you're in there, so that's questionable, but at the same time, the murals that they have would not be nearly as cool if they weren't lit by the blacklit light. So I guess take it or leave it. You decide how you feel about it when you see it. So the wait area right when you walk in has a whole lot of photo ops. There's a really cool looking couch. So there's like a casket that I think is like a coffee table, if I remember correctly. They have that. They also have a little chair that you can take pictures, and they also have a actual little face hole cutout photo specific area where you can take pictures too, which is pretty neat. And of course family friendly, since if you're coming there for the first time, then you get to take advantage of all of those things, especially if you have to wait a few minutes for your table. So we ended up going on a Friday. They had only actually been open 7 days, so that is the reason why I say take all of this with a grain of salt, because ultimately they are still working out a lot of kinks. And one thing that really kind of confused us was that when we went in, I was kind of expecting it to be relatively busy, even though like when we pulled up there wasn't a whole lot of there weren't a whole lot of cars in the parking lot, but I was expecting there to be a lot more people, or maybe a lot less seating area, because they require that reservation. So when I went in and we were seated and we realized that it's pretty much empty, we were really confused. I'm not sure if there's a rhyme or reason to why they're doing that right now. Maybe we were kind of assuming that it might possibly be for trying to gauge exactly how many people they need to staff, since they are, like I said, starting out. But it just didn't really make a whole lot of sense that they had it by reservation only when the place was dead. There was maybe 2 other tables that were occupied in the area where we were at, and that area was pretty much making up half of the restaurant, from what I could tell. The host was really nice, who seated us, and then the waitress that came to wait on us was also equally nice. I will say that she definitely seemed unfamiliar with the menu, but in her defense, there was a lot of items on the menu, not to mention that the dessert menu entirely did not have any description under each item, even though the names didn't really tell you exactly what type of dessert it was. So that was kind of a weird situation, because when I wanted direction or assistance with trying to figure out what to pick, I really couldn't look to her for that, and that was a little off-putting. I'm not sure if they maybe haven't done a full menu review with their staff yet, or what's going on in that sense, but I definitely do think that if you're starting a restaurant, that it's highly important for all of the staff, especially the wait staff, to be extremely familiar with the menu, so that way when there are questions about what to order, or what something may comprise of, or ingredients or anything like that, or if it happens to be an allergy question, that you're not only familiar but know those types of answers and can respond about that. I didn't really press it because I'm pretty easygoing when it comes to those things. I don't like to be confrontational, so when in doubt, I'm just gonna pick whatever I think might be good and just kind of go with it. We did see after the fact, after we were gone and we're looking at some of the reviews on Google Maps, we did see that some people experienced long wait times, weren't really addressed for long periods before, after they got seated and before they actually got their drink order or took their food order. We didn't experience any of that. We had our reservation at 5 o'clock. We got there about 10 minutes early and we were seated right away within seconds, I would say. And waitress came up and spoke to us within minutes, and we were able to put our orders in pretty quickly. And we also got our meal and everything else kind of out of the way relatively fast. I want to say that we left no later than maybe 5:35 in the afternoon. So start to finish, it took probably only about 30-35 minutes for us to get through all of our food, drinks, dessert, everything. So I did not experience any big wait times, not to say that that doesn't happen. But that just wasn't my experience, so I can't really speak to that specifically. But there were other issues, and I'll talk about those in just a second. While we were reviewing the menu, though, we just kind of had so many things to take a look at around the whole place. There was stuff from wall to wall. You could pretty much walk around the whole restaurant and probably not see everything because there's a whole lot of decor that they have going on, things hanging from the ceiling, things on the wall. And there was also a really fun thunder effect that they had. We were sat near a fireplace that looked kind of like something out of a movie, and it had a thunder effect with flashing lights. So not a good idea to sit people there if they may, be prone to epilepsy or anything like that, which probably in retrospect would be a good thing for them to ask ahead of time. I, for example, deal with photosensitivity due to migraines, so not the best or ideal situation, but I was able to, deal with it. But I would say that in the future, because it is such a bright light that flashes, probably would be a good idea for them to ask if that's an issue for someone before sitting them right next to where it does flash. We still thought it was a fun effect, and it did add to the overall atmosphere. On that same note, though, something that we did notice while we were reviewing the menu and looking around at everything was that it was a little odd that there was no mood music or background music of any kind. So it literally was dead silent other than that really random thunder sound with the flashing lights and hearing the staff shuffling around or talking to each other. And that was a little off-putting because you're in this really cool, fun-looking place, yet there's nothing else really that's contributing to the Halloween or spooky vibe. So I found that a little bit weird and, just kind of out of place when it comes to that, because there's so many things that I feel were missed opportunities, at least in my particular experience. These could be things that they either, maybe just hadn't done that day or plan on doing in the future. I'm not sure. I can, like I said, only speak to what I experienced when I went. And so for me, it being completely silent was kind of a missed opportunity. I thought they should be playing, a fun Halloween playlist or something in the background, maybe even just ambient spooky noise would be kind of cool just to add to the overall feel of the place. Speaking of missed opportunities, I also thought that it was kind of a little sad that none of the wait staff really dressed at all Halloweenish. And I'm not saying that I expect them to be in full-blown, state-of-the-art costumes, but a little razzle-dazzle or a little something here or there would definitely pep up your experience. I would say maybe even, a Halloween-themed colored polo shirt, or even a fun name tag, or just something along that line to kind of zhuzh things up a little bit. Maybe even if you're going to do costumes, which would be awesome, but if you're going to do costumes, it doesn't have to be something extravagant. It could be something simplistic just to make sure that the staff is of course still comfortable, but still enough to be fun. Even having something along the lines of maybe a little fun hat, like I said, fun name tag even, that maybe lights up, or just something that makes their presence a little more fun and a little more in line or in theme. When they just look like another patron, That's a little weird, and it just, like I said, it just is such a missed opportunity that I think they could do more with. I have been a server, you know, in my customer service career, so I know that that is a hard line of work, and I am no stranger to that. So I'm not saying that they, you know, should do anything major as far as what they should wear, but a little something would be fun. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Again, you may think differently, and that's entirely okay. That's just how I felt about it. So now let's talk about the main important part of this whole thing, which is the food and the menu. First and foremost, this is ultimately a restaurant. So that is going to be the main thing that you're coming there for, is the food and the service overall. So after we left, I did definitely check out the Google reviews. My husband had kind of already hinted or warned me that the Google reviews weren't great. If you know anything about me, and especially from my channel, you know that I am a sucker for anything related to Halloween. So for us, it really didn't matter. We still wanted to at least give it a chance one time, regardless of how bad the reviews were, because we would love to have a Halloween themed restaurant in our neck of the woods to be able to go to on special occasions or what have you. So we still wanted to go anyway, but my husband did let me know ahead of time that they weren't great. So when we left, we definitely took a look at those, and I would say that I can understand where those reviews are coming from. The good news about it is there is always room for improvement if you know what you're doing wrong and can do better. I can understand why the ratings are so terribly low, even though the place itself is really cool as far as decor. Last I checked, even recently as today, the rating is only going lower, unfortunately. It was down to a 2.7 out of 5, which I don't know about you, but for me personally, for the most part, when it comes to restaurants, I really try to avoid anywhere that's rated under a 4. And that's just based on my personal experiences when I have gone against my better judgment and ignored some of the bad reviews. I've only paid for it later, so I try to read through the reviews and try to see, you know, who kind of aligns with something that resonates with me. So that way I can kind of gauge how I might feel about it. So in this particular case, I did read some of those reviews afterward, and I understood where they were coming from. I do think that depending on your perspective, you definitely may feel a lot more harshly than I would about some of these things. The menu, in our opinion, once we looked at it, we just thought was a bit overwhelming in the sense that there is a whole lot going on with it, and I want to say they brought us like 3 different parts to the menu rather than it being like a solid one menu item. It is like 3 different little pieces, and I think they could condense it honestly and just make it one long even square front and back, and also just kind of refine things. Sometimes when we try to do too much or juggle too much, basically it's like when you spread yourself too thin. So that's kind of how I feel about this menu. I think that if they were to condense it a lot more and really refine what they can do well, then I think that would go a long way. So we started our order with drink orders, and my husband got something called the Swamp Thing, and I got a drink called the Zombie, and his was a lot more bitter and less sweet than mine was. Mine was definitely a lot sweeter, and it was good. However, it was $14 and his was $13, and they definitely did not have what I felt was a good alcohol content. And I'm not a huge drinker, neither one of us are really, but we expect when we're paying those types of prices for a alcoholic beverage that it's going to be relatively strong, not seem more watered down. And also the drink itself wasn't really all that special. Literally the only thing like spooky vibed about them was that the toothpicks holding the garnishes in both drinks had these little skulls on them. So that's really it. But the difference between that and getting, you know, a subpar drink somewhere else literally is only that toothpick. So for me, that was a bit of a letdown. I was expecting that it be in like a funky skull shaped cup, or that it was going to have like be poured over dry ice or something along that line. I have seen other videos that show that at some point, and I'm not sure if it's, you know, specifically to that drink that that person had, but at some point they did have a drink that has dry ice in it. So I'm not sure if maybe just mine didn't come with that, who knows, but I just really feel like that's a missed opportunity to amp up the spooky vibe when you could just do simply a you know, Halloween themed cup, and even go so far as to make it to where people can buy the cup and take it home, because I think that those types of things are crowd pleasers and they're things that people look forward to doing, and it just kind of adds to the whimsy of the whole experience. And just to give you guys a little bit of my perspective as far as how I'm gauging and judging a restaurant, I'm really looking at the overall experience, the food quality, the service, and really just kind of the overall. And I do a lot of Google reviews, you know, definitely on the positive side. I try to avoid doing negative reviews at all costs if I can. It really takes a whole lot for me to leave a negative review, period, just because I know that a business lives and dies based on their most recent reviews, because I know I personally, when I'm going to consider going to a restaurant or going somewhere, I do highly depend on those reviews. So for me, that is something I don't do lightly. On the price level and price point for their particular menu, I would compare it to, or in my experience, it would be the equivalent of a fine dining steakhouse in order for it to warrant the cost that it is. So just to kind of give you an example, so we ordered the crab cake balls for our appetizer, and those were $16. And when we got them, they were definitely a lot smaller than we expected them to be. They were basically the size of about a tablespoon, and there were 5 of them, which is, you know, fine, but it's just kind of on the smaller side. And they're served on top of like a arugula salad. So it's pretty small, which isn't bad. It's just, you know, I would want there to be a description of some sort that prepares you for that. Because if you had ordered this intending to maybe have for a family of 5, you would literally be eating a bite each. And that's something that I would want to know if I'm trying to order an appetizer for my family. Not to mention, like I said before, the wait staff didn't seem entirely familiar with the menu itself, so it didn't really feel the most easy to approach them with questions about the menu. So it kind of just felt like flying blind. And I didn't really care for that aspect of it. I really wish that there was just more detailed descriptions on a lot of this menu. And honestly, like I said, that they would thin it out, so that way it's just easier to choose from and to understand. But like I mentioned, in regards to how I'm making my comparisons on food and fine dining, so I did mention that I would compare the pricing to a high-end steakhouse. And when I'm thinking of experiences, so my absolute hands down best experience in a restaurant is a steakhouse called Charleston's here in Texas. There's also one in Oklahoma, which I have been to in Oklahoma City, and both equally excellent service. But not only that, the food is just amazing. It's incredibly rich in flavors and seasonings and everything you can think of. It's all very fresh tasting. Everything absolutely tastes 5-star to me and is worth the price that you're paying for it. So basically, you would end up paying relatively between $50 to $75 a person, which is pretty steep. It's not an everyday out to eat kind of restaurant, which is fine. We love it for special occasions. I think we've gone, you know, maybe once a year. It's a really nice experience, and we definitely feel every time we've gone that we get every bit of value for our money spent when we go there. From the drinks, which definitely taste and feel top shelf, to these fresh baked croissants that they actually bring to the table, which put Texas Roadhouse rolls to shame. So if you know anything about those, then you understand just how good these probably are. Like I said, everything else is just top notch. So that is what I think of when I think of, you know, my highest level of rating. And then as far as the worst would be a restaurant that is actually no longer open, which I went to about a year ago or so. And basically that experience was poor from the very start. Super long wait time. The staff was not very nice or pleasant or apologetic about any of the experience. The food was just about inedible from how terrible it was. And, we basically just endured it, paid and left, and just never went back. And that was one occasion that I did leave a review because we gave them every opportunity to try to fix things, and it really just went on deaf ears. And not to mention, but the responses that were being given in the Google reviews were just dreadful and completely unbecoming of a professional business. So for that reason, I just wanted to mention that because that is kind of the scale that I'm looking at. So when I'm paying super expensive prices, for example, the plate that I ordered at this particular restaurant was a ribeye steak, and I ordered some veggies as the side, and it came with creamed eggplant, which I'd never actually had. So I'm not sure, as far as that goes, I don't know, if they are in the process of refining their menu, but the steak itself, I always have my steak medium when I'm eating a steak. However, I am one of those people that if I get it overcooked or even a slight bit undercooked, I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to eat it and take note of that for future reference and let it go. In this case, it wasn't a big deal. It was a little bit overcooked, so it wasn't medium. The seasoning on the steak itself was great and the flavor was great. However, the presentation definitely left something to be desired. I was expecting that the plates probably would be at least somewhat Halloween themed, since everything else was a little bit lacking in that. Besides the utensils, which did have, they were black and had little skulls on them, which I thought was kind of cool. So I was hoping that the plates would be decorated or, something a little more spooky vibed. They weren't. They were just plain old plates, and the presentation of the food as well, in my opinion, left a lot to be desired. The vegetables kind of look like the mixed bag of veggies that you'll find in the frozen food section, and you just kind of throw in the microwave and then slap on the plate. Only a little worse in the sense that there were these harder stalks of onion, and I'm talking it seemed almost like the middle of an onion, and it was large to the point that it would be difficult to try to fit that in your mouth and chew it. The other veggies that were steamed with it weren't seasoned really, and that was kind of disappointing because, again, if you're gonna pay, because in my case my plate was $39, that's pretty steep. I typically will keep any kind of restaurant outings. My meals are usually $20 or less, if not $15 or less. So to pay $39 for a plate that ends up looking like that, it just kind of is deflating. And I enjoyed trying something new. It didn't really do anything to warrant to the $39 price tag. There wasn't anything special or more upscale about the dish at all, and that was a letdown. Not to mention that for me, because of the lack of seasoning on the veggies themselves, I left most of them on the plate, and so I did end up being a tiny bit hungry after we left, which was a bummer, considering that total we ended up paying about $75 a person, if not a little more. So that's a hard pill to swallow when you leave somewhere and you've gone there for the first time, you've had a lackluster experience, but then on top of that, you left much lighter in the wallet. That just wasn't fun. So anyway, my husband's was actually a little bit sadder than mine. So he ordered the peach glazed pork flat iron, and I had never heard of that before, but it sounded good. So we were like, okay, let's splurge a little. Let's treat ourselves. We don't really go out to date night very often, so it was just fun for us to get to do something fancy, or what felt fancy at the time. His, unfortunately, was a good majority bone versus actual meat. When I asked him the ratio, he would say it was about 60% bone as opposed to actual meat, and that is extremely sad, because his dish, he ordered the same veggies and same experience as I had. There was some weird stuff and it wasn't seasoned that well. Also, the peach glaze that it came with was canned peaches, And that just, like, again, if you're paying premium dollars for something that's supposed to be upscale or sounds or reads upscale, and then you get something that feels downscale, that is a huge letdown. So he was not happy about that, and I ended up sharing, you know, part of my steak so that, you know, we didn't end up feeling extra hungry after our meal, because we didn't want to eat a lot of the veggies. They just weren't that appetizing. So yeah, that just really stung. When we Googled later what a pork flat iron is, it actually says it's typically boneless. So I'm not sure what happened there. Dessert. So dessert was actually our favorite part of the meal, just flavor wise. Presentation, again, nothing special, unfortunately. It wasn't extra Halloween themed. It was just plain Jane. And like I said, that would be fine at a normal restaurant. But again, if the food isn't all that great and part of what you're paying for is the atmosphere or experience, then I at least expect that the food has more theming to it. So at least I feel like there's some effort being put into that portion of it, but they just kind of missed the mark when it comes to that entirely. The dessert we ordered, it was called a hazelnut layered delight, and the name fits as far as the flavors go. However, by just saying that, do you know what kind of dessert it was? We didn't. So when we read the dessert menu, they were all kind of Halloween themed names, which again really doesn't make sense if the food itself doesn't come out with any specialized anything to say that it's Halloween themed. So that part is a big disconnect as far as that goes. But this one was called, that hazelnut layered dream, and it definitely fit that when it came out, because again, the flavors and everything were there. It's definitely full of hazelnut flavor, crumbled hazelnuts all around. But it was kind of like a mousse wafer layered pie shaped concoction. I can't tell you what exactly it is because honestly I asked the waitress and she had no idea, and it got a little awkward, so I really just said, I'll go with that. It sounds good. Let's just see what we get. And I wasn't disappointed when it came out because the flavor was great. It was, like I said, like a hazelnut mousse, and it was cold and it was very light, not too sweet. So I would highly recommend that dessert. I can't really speak to, like I said, anything else on the menu. Pretty much that's really the only thing that I would recommend at this point, since I didn't have a huge positive experience with anything else yet. It was good. We definitely enjoyed that. Part of me does wonder though if we liked it a little bit more because everything else in comparison wasn't as good, so we were really looking for something to like at that point. But it really was delicious, so I'm gonna say that was definitely a 5 out of 5 for me as far as flavor and everything else. I just really wish that they would do something to their food items in order to make them fit the bill of the names that they give them being related to Halloween. And before we read some of the other reviews on Google Maps, we were hoping that maybe it was honestly just our blunder for ordering the steamed veggies, or maybe for ordering upscale period, that maybe this restaurant in particular does the other items better, and maybe we just kind of got the short end of the straw. We didn't know, but when we looked at some of the reviews, we actually saw one where someone complained specifically about a burger and fries, and a burger and fries are pretty hard to screw up, at least from what I have experienced. For the most part, even the worst restaurants can turn out a pretty decent burger and french fries. So I did find that pretty sad to read after the fact, because I was hoping that maybe it was just, our choices that might have contributed to our experience, and I was really trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. But reading the reviews just definitely solidified the fact that it seems it's an overall issue with either, the quality of food that's being produced and the overall choices, or like I said, maybe it's an overextension of the menu that's causing the disconnect, there. I'm not sure, but yeah, that was definitely something that surprised me for sure. So what I would say I'm hoping for most when it comes to this restaurant's menu is honestly for them to do maybe less upscale and just focus on the basics and bring down the prices so that it matches the quality. because overall that is a running theme as far as the reviews go, the poor ones especially, are that people feel that the amount that you're paying for this food is absolutely not in line with the quality that you're receiving. And I, for one, am witness to that. I can 100% say that I agree with that statement. I think that there's a lot to be worked on and to be desired when it comes to the food. So they definitely should work on adding things that are simpler and that have more of a Halloween spin or a spooky spin to them. They could honestly even take a page out of the Universal Studios playbook, because they every year have people coming in droves, and you know, the food may not be all that spectacular, but it's always fun, and it's always related to movies or whatever theme they have going on that year, whatever haunted houses are happening. And it just adds to the overall excitement of the whole experience there with Halloween Horror Nights. So that being said, I think that there is a place for a Halloween themed restaurant to do well. However, you need to make sure that you execute things in a way that doesn't leave too much to be desired, because if you don't focus in the right areas, especially when it comes to food, if it's a restaurant, then you know that's gonna obviously turn people away and make people not come back, and also leave poor reviews. And also, here's the thing, like I mentioned, with any new business, there's gonna be kinks and bumps in the road when they're starting out. That's typically to be expected. But what you can't do as a new business is put your overhead costs or whatever it is that's causing the bleed onto your consumer. And that's definitely how it feels when it comes to the food prices at this restaurant, because the quality and what you're getting just don't match. So it's just making you wonder, well, where is this money going? Is it going to repay all of this decor? In which case, I don't know that that's really worth it. I love the Halloween decor, don't get me wrong. However, if I'm gonna go and spend that much money on a date night with my husband, I do not want to feel like I either need to go eat something else afterward, or like I just kind of threw that money down the drain. Because, you know, we definitely work hard for what we have. And so I don't want to feel that way when I go and have an outing. And it's really a bummer, because I wanted so badly to like this place, and I really wanted to have a good experience. And I definitely sought to have a good experience, but it didn't happen. And I really am hoping that in getting feedback like this, that the restaurant will be able to press forward and make strides in the right direction, because I think that with improvements, this place has incredible potential to be amazing. The bar itself is just a whole lot of fun, and if nothing else, if you could host costume parties around Halloween time with specialized cocktails and, you know, specialized hors d'oeuvres that are Halloween themed, that is something that you could potentially do every single year and bring all of those customers back every single time if you earn their business. So for me, that is definitely one of those things. If I'm going to come back somewhere, you have to earn my business. And in this particular case, it's going to be a while before I do come back, because I'm going to have to watch the reviews and see if there's any improvement. Also, I would want to see an updated menu and see some changes being made, as well as some price adjustments, because it just doesn't make sense to me to charge the amounts that are being charged and not feeling like you got an upscale meal. I am hopeful to come back someday. I don't think it'll be soon, but I do hope to come back someday, because I really want there to be more places like this that are different, fun, and also fun for kids. I know that a place like this would have been something I dreamt of as a child, because again, Halloween has always been something that I have loved. As you can see from my shirt, it's Tales from the Crypt. I definitely watched that show when I was a kid. Probably not appropriate for children at all. I haven't gone back to rewatch it in a long time, but either way, I have always been into it, and it would have been something really exciting to be able to go somewhere like that for, you know, a birthday or something along that line. So if they do trend in the positive direction, then I do think that it could be a successful business long term, as long as they execute the right changes. But what did you think of the restaurant? Based on my review, Do you think you'll be going to the restaurant? Do you want to give it a try? Let me know in the comments below. Have you been already? If you are feeling my spooky vibe and you definitely want to see other content in the future, please hit that like button and also hit that subscribe button to make sure that you see my future videos. But I will see you guys in the next one. Keep it creepy. Bye, guys.
I'll be cutting a lot of that.